How many times can a franchise repaint the same rotten wall and still convince itself that the house isn't about to collapse? Because that's what the Toronto Maple Leafs have been doing for years. Throwing fresh blue and gold paint over a decaying structure, selling minor adjustments and bad luck while the foundation of this core has been getting eaten alive. And now, with 4 days left before the trade deadline, the facade finally shattered in public. Auston Matthews didn't just give a quote. He detonated the PR shield. When your captain steps to a microphone, looks at the product on the ice, and calls it embarrassing, that isn't a post-game soundbite. That's a verdict. That is your best player filing a formal complaint against the culture, the urgency, and the honesty of the organization. In a real contender, that comment triggers action. In Toronto, for years, it triggered spin. Blame the secondary star. Blame the coach. Blame puck luck. Leak just enough names to the media to make it look like you're serious, while secretly praying that one more coat of paint will hold a wall through another spring. This time, it didn't. 3 straight losses coming out of the Olympic break didn't just hurt the standings. They stripped away the last layer of plausible deniability. You're not watching a good team going through a bad week. You're watching a broken core finally showing what it really is when the pressure is maximum, flat, catatonic, emotionally empty. And the louder outside voices get, analysts like Craig Button going on national television and saying, stop retooling, blow it up, the more exposed the front office becomes. Because that's the heart of this moment. It's not just about losing games. It's about the public verdict on years of misdiagnosis. For a long time, the Leafs sold the country a story. The core is good enough. We just need tweaks. We just need a bounce. Maybe one guy isn't committed enough. Maybe it's just one passenger, one contract, one scapegoat away from working. Mitch Marner became the lightning rod, the whispers, the trade talk, the narrative that one problem was poisoning an otherwise championship-caliber build. If you could just throw one star under the bus, the machine would suddenly run clean. Well, the calendar fought back. The NHL has its own version of quick justice. You can lie to press conferences. You can feed narratives to insiders. You can talk about lessons learned and renewed focus. But the standings and the playoff results hand down the sentence. This year, that sentence could not be clearer. The Leafs are not a tweak away. They are not one bounce away. They are not an unlucky giant waiting to break through. They are a structurally flawed organization that has been pretending that interior decorating is the same thing as rebuilding the foundation. So now the question lands squarely on Brad Treliving's desk. Are you a buyer? Are you really going to sit there for days before the deadline, watching your captain say he's ashamed of what's happening on the ice and decide, you know what this needs? One more depth forward, a rental defenseman, maybe a veteran third liner to change the room? Or do you finally accept the truth everyone else can see, that this team, as constructed, does not have the competitive character, the internal accountability, or the structural balance to win 4 rounds in the NHL playoffs? Craig Button didn't stumble onto some hot take for attention. He voiced what a lot of people around the league already believe. The era of retool in Toronto is over. You have pressed that button so many times that it's stuck. There is nothing left to retool. There is only rebuild. And that's exactly where the Leafs front office is trapped between pride and survival. To admit that you need a rebuild is to admit that the last cycle was not just unlucky, it was mismanaged. It means looking into a camera and telling the most intense market in hockey, we built this wrong. We rode this too long. We are behind excuses. It means saying out loud what Matthews implied. This isn't good enough. And it hasn't been for a while. That is organizational humiliation. That is the bill coming due for years of scapegoating and narrative control. And yet, it might be the only way out. Because here's the brutal math of ignoring that reality. If you try to ride this core out of pure stubbornness, if you cling to the idea that we're close and refuse to move big pieces now when they still hold value, you're not just risking another first-round exit. You're risking wasting Auston Matthews' prime in a fog of denial. You are signing up for a scenario where 3 or 4 years from now, the team is worse, the assets are thinner, the cap is less flexible, and the captain who called this embarrassing is either gone or emotionally checked out. That's where quick justice turns into long-term punishment. So what does blowing it up actually mean in Toronto, not as a slogan, but as a roadmap. It means you stop fantasizing about one magical acquisition and start admitting you are, or should be, the biggest seller in the league. It means turning your veterans, your core lights, your mid-tier contracts into draft capital and prospects instead of clinging to them as if they'll suddenly become something they've never been when the lights get hot. It means looking at players you've emotionally attached to, the guys whose jerseys fill the arena, the ones who've been here through it all, and asking one cold question: will this player still be in his prime and still part of a legitimate contending core 3 to 5 years from now? If the answer is no, you pick up the phone. That's the level of honesty this market has avoided for years. Every time Maple Leaf sports and entertainment try to buy its way out of discomfort instead of stripping things down, it signaled one thing: fear. Fear of angering a fan base. Fear of being the front office that gave up. Fear of admitting that the shiny core they advertised so aggressively might not have had the spine they sold. And the price of that fear is suddenly obvious. You now stare at a roster that's too soft mentally, too imbalanced structurally, and too comfortable with its own excuses. The karma of blaming Mitch Marner is that when he leaves, whether now or later, nothing fundamental changes, because the problems were never about one player. They were about a whole environment that tolerated being almost good enough and called it progress. That's why Matthews' comment matters much more than one quote in a slump. He cracked the shield. When the captain publicly labels the effort embarrassing, he's telling you he's done protecting the narrative. He's telling you he doesn't buy the PR spin anymore. He's telling you, in coded language, that he's ready for real change, or he's ready to stop pretending. If the front office ignores that, if they hide behind "we believe in this group" one more time and limp past the deadline as half-hearted buyers or fake stand-pat optimists, then the message to Matthews is just as clear. Your embarrassment doesn't move us. Our pride in our own previous decisions matters more. And there is no faster way to lose a superstar than to make him feel like his prime is being wasted in service of someone else's ego. So let's put the GM badge on you. You're sitting in Brad Treliving's chair. You've just watched 3 straight no-shows after the Olympics. Your captain just called the team's performance a disgrace. Craig Button is on national TV telling the country you need to tear it down. The deadline clock is ticking. Are you really going to ship a second-round pick for a depth defenseman and call it sending a message? Or are you going to send a real message to the league, to your locker room, and to your own ownership by turning this week into a liquidation sale? That means entertaining offers on pieces you never thought you'd move in season. That means seeing value in late firsts, early seconds, and legitimate prospects more than in continuing to roll the dice on a group that is already at a full era to prove what it is. It doesn't mean trading Auston Matthews. It means accepting that the best way to honor his prime might not be one more run with the same old story, but rather clearing out the dead weight and rebuilding a harder, more honest core around him. And yes, that comes with risk. You will be accused of panicking. You will be accused of quitting. Fans will divide. Talk shows will foam at the mouth. People will say, "You can't rebuild in Toronto. Not in this market. Not with this pressure." But here's the counterpunch. What's more insulting to this market? Telling the truth and starting the painful work of building something real, or insulting everybody's intelligence by pretending that this same group, with a couple of decorative swaps, is suddenly going to develop championship spine? Supporters in this city don't just demand wins. They demand authenticity. They've watched collapses, meltdowns, blown leads, and soft exits for a decade. They know what it looks like when a team pretends to be something it isn't. They've seen the organization backstab its own narrative targets and call it accountability. What they haven't seen in this era is full, unapologetic honesty. Honesty would sound like this: we overestimated parts of this core. We underestimated how hard it is to win. We got attached to names instead of standards. We wasted time. We will not waste more. Honesty would look like this week being about selling, not hedging, about stockpiling picks instead of shipping them out of stubbornness, about signaling to Auston Matthews that you are willing to take short-term humiliation for long-term legitimacy. And that's the decision point now. You can cling to the current group, terrified of being labeled as a GM who blew it up, and hope that a few breaks and a few Band-Aid moves magically heal what has been psychologically broken for years. Or you can look at Auston Matthews' face after another embarrassing performance, hear the disgust in his voice, and understand that the worst thing you can do for your captain and your city is to pretend that a can of paint is a structural repair. This fan base can handle pain. What it can't handle anymore is delusion. So here's the question that defines the next 4 days, and maybe the next 4 years in Toronto. Do you rip the core apart now, accept the storm, lean into the draft, and try to build a new identity around a superstar who's clearly begging for something more serious? Or do you hide behind cosmetic changes again? Let the karma denial pile up and risk turning the back half of Auston Matthews' prime into the longest, slowest, most avoidable tragedy in modern Leafs history? Argue it out. Pick a side. Because the clock isn't just ticking on the deadline. It's ticking on the credibility of this franchise.